The world above was a tapestry of endless gold, a realm where Demeter's touch turned the soil into a bounty of life, and the air smelled of blooming jasmine. Persephone, the daughter of the harvest, moved through these fields like a breath of spring, her footsteps coaxing lilies from the sleeping earth. Yet, even in the brightness of the sun, she often felt a strange pulling at her soul, a curiosity for the shadows that lingered beneath the roots of the ancient trees. One afternoon, while wandering away from her companions, she spotted a flower of impossible beauty, a narcissus that seemed to glow with the dark, silver light. As she reached out to pluck it, the ground beneath her feet groaned with the weight of shifting tectonic plates, and the earth split open like a jagged wound. Out of the darkness rose a chariot of obsidian, pulled by horses with eyes of fire and manes of swirling smoke, driven by the silent lord of the dead. Hades did not speak words of comfort, he simply reached out, and the gravity of his realm pulled Persephone down into the yawning abyss. The transition from light to dark was not a fall, but a drowning in silence, as the warmth of the sun was replaced by the chill of the subterranean wind. When Persephone finally opened her eyes, she was no longer in the fields of Enna, but in a palace built of cold marble and starlight that had never seen the sky. This was the underworld, a realm of gray mist and echoing halls where the concepts of time and season held no jurisdiction. Hades stood before her, not as a monster, but as a king of immense loneliness, his crown made of iron and his gaze fixed on the girl who brought color to his gray world. "You are safe here," he whispered, his voice like the grinding of stones deep within the earth. "But you are no longer a creature of the sun." Persephone wept for her mother, for the flowers, and for the simple rhythm of day and night that she had left behind. She wandered the halls of the obsidian palace, finding gardens where the flowers were made of crystal, and the rivers flowed with the memories of the forgotten. In the world above, Demeter's grief turned the earth to ice. As the goddess of the harvest searched every corner of the globe for her lost child, the fields withered, the cattle died, and humanity shivered in a winter that threatened to never end, all because the light of Persephone was missing. Meanwhile, in the deep places, Persephone began to notice the quiet majesty of the other realm, the way the spirits found peace in the stillness. She saw that Hades was not a jailer of souls, but a guardian of the balance, ensuring that every life found its proper rest at the end of its journey. Despite her growing understanding, a hunger began to gnaw at her, not a hunger for bread or meat, but a hunger for the essence of the world she now inhabited. Hades had warned her that those who eat the food of the dead are bound to the underworld forever, tied to the soil of the silent kingdom. He offered her jewels, silken robes, and the service of 1,000 shadows, but he never forced her to taste the fruit of his land. One evening, Persephone found herself in a hidden grove where a single pomegranate tree grew, its branches heavy with fruit that looked like polished rubies. The fruit seemed to pulse with a dark vitality, a stark contrast to the pale mist that swirled around its gnarled trunk. She knew that Hermes was already on his way, sent by Zeus to bring her back to the surface to save the starving world. She knew that if she remained pure of the underworld's essence, she would return to her mother and the endless spring of her youth. But as she looked at the pomegranate, she realized that she was no longer just the daughter of Demeter. She had seen the truth of the shadows. She understood that life without death was a story without an ending, a song that never found its final beautiful chord. With a hand that did not tremble, she reached up and plucked the heavy fruit, its skin cool and smooth against her palm. She broke it open, and the seeds spilled out like drops of blood, gleaming with a forbidden knowledge. She took the first seed and placed it on her tongue, the tart sweetness exploding in her mouth like a burst of ancient memory. With the second seed, she felt the chill of the underworld seep into her veins, no longer as a threat, but as a part of her own being. The third seed brought her the visions of the spirits, the long lines of souls waiting for a queen who understood their journey. As she swallowed the fourth seed, the obsidian walls of the palace seemed to soften, welcoming her as their rightful mistress. The fifth seed connected her to Hades, a bond formed not of capture, but of shared sovereignty over the mysteries of the deep. Finally, she ate the sixth seed, and the transformation was complete. The girl of spring was gone, and the queen of the underworld was born. Just as the juice stained her lips, Hermes arrived, his winged sandals glowing in the gloom as he touched down upon the cold floor. "The king of the gods demands your return," Hermes announced, his eyes widening as he saw the broken fruit in her hand. Hades stepped out from the shadows, his expression unreadable, waiting to see if his kingdom had truly claimed its prize. "I will go," Persephone said, her voice now carrying the resonance of the earth's deep tremors. "But I do not go as a captive." Because she had tasted the seeds, a compromise was struck in the high halls of Olympus, mediated by the fates themselves. For 6 months of the year, she would return to the world of light, bringing the bloom of spring and the heat of summer to her mother's side. But for the other 6 months, she would descend back to the obsidian throne, to rule the realm of shadows as the wife of Hades. This was the origin of the seasons, the cosmic heartbeat of a world that must die to be reborn. When she emerged from the earth to meet Demeter, the snow melted instantly, and the first green shoots of corn pierced the frozen ground. Her mother embraced her with a joy that shook the heavens, but she noticed a change in her daughter's eyes. There was a depth there, a shadow that no amount of sunlight could ever truly wash away. Persephone told her mother of the silent halls and the crystal gardens, of the peace found in the darkness. She spoke of the weight of the crown and the responsibility of guiding the souls through the mist of the afterlife. Demeter wept, realizing that her daughter was no longer a child to be protected, but a goddess of two worlds. As the months passed and the harvest was gathered, a familiar chill began to settle over the hills once more. Persephone did not fear the coming of the frost. She felt the pull of the seeds she had eaten, calling her back to her other home. She understood now that the underworld was not a place of punishment, but a necessary half of the whole. Without the descent, there could be no ascent. Without the winter, the spring had no meaning. She packed her memories of the sun and prepared for the journey down the jagged path into the dark. Hades was waiting for her at the gates, his chariot ready to carry her back to the throne that had sat empty in her absence. The spirits cheered in a low, ghostly hum as their queen returned, her presence bringing a strange light to the gray plains of Asphodel. She sat beside Hades, and together they judged the hearts of men, balancing the scales of existence with wisdom and mercy. Persephone found that she loved the silence of the deep as much as she loved the music of the birds. She loved the way the stars looked when viewed through the thin veil between dimensions. She became the bridge between the living and the dead, the one who understood the taste of both honey and pomegranate. Her story is not one of a victim, but of a woman who chose her own destiny in the heart of the unknown. She accepted the darkness within herself and turned it into a source of power. The 6 seeds were not a mistake. They were a declaration of independence from a world that only valued the bright and the easy. In the other realm, she discovered that beauty can exist without light, and that strength is forged in the absence of warmth. Every year, we witness her struggle, her triumph in the changing of the leaves and the rising of the sap. We see her in the first frost that kills the flowers, and in the first bud that defies the cold. She teaches us that we all have a bit of the underworld inside us, a place of shadows that we must learn to rule. To ignore the dark is to live only half a life. To embrace it is to become whole. Persephone's journey is the journey of every soul that must face its own transformation. She moved through the realms with a grace that silenced even the gods. She showed that love can bloom in the most unlikely of places, even in the house of the dead. Her relationship with Hades was not built on the fleeting passions of the sun, but on the eternal foundations of the earth. They were the anchors of the universe, holding the balance while the mortals played above. When she returns to the surface, she brings the wisdom of the ancestors to the living. When she descends, she carries the hopes of the living to the ancestors. She is the cycle, the circle, and the seed. The taste of the pomegranate remains on her lips forever, a reminder of the price of wisdom. She does not regret the choice she made in the hidden grove, for in that moment, she found her true self, a being of complexity and shadow. The myth of Persephone is a map for those who find themselves lost in the dark places of their own lives. It tells us that the darkness is not the end, but a different kind of beginning. It tells us that we have the power to eat the seeds of our experience and grow from them. We are all travelers between realms, moving through phases of growth and rest. Persephone is the patroness of those who walk between worlds. She is the light in the tunnel and the shadow in the field. As the wheel of the year turns, we look to her for guidance on how to survive the winters of our soul. We learn to store our strength, to wait for the right moment to bloom. We learn that even the king of the dead can be moved by the beauty of a courageous heart. The Obsidian Palace is no longer a place of fear, but a sanctuary of truth. Persephone reigns there with a steady hand, her crown gleaming in the dark. She is the queen of the deep, the mistress of the seeds, and the goddess of the turning tide. Her name is whispered by the wind in the trees and echoed by the stones in the caves. She is the mystery that can never be fully solved, the taste that can never be forgotten. As we conclude this tale, remember the power of the choices you make when no one is watching. Remember that even in the deepest dark, there is a fruit waiting to be tasted, a path waiting to be claimed. Persephone's journey continues, as it does for all of us, through the light and the shadow. May you find the courage to taste your own seeds and rule your own realm. The pomegranate is open, the choice is yours, and the seasons will always turn. Thank you for watching Storycraft Studio. If you enjoyed this mythic journey, please comment, like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the realms beyond.